Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. And today I'm going to educate you and I'm going to show you something really that we spoke a month ago to Latrobe Magnesium and got a lot of really good feedback. A lot of people saying to us, can you talk to David Paterson, the CEO, again? So I brought David back just in time for Christmas because there's a lot going on with Latrobe Magnesium, and it's really important that you guys sit up because these guys are not taking a break. They've got a lot going on. David, great to see you. It was only a month ago that I spoke to you. Merry Christmas, almost. It was the week before Christmas.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. I mean, it's always great to speak to you.
Look, David, before we get in, there's some of the feedback I had is there's a little bit of a lack of understanding of what is magnesium, where's the market, and what's it look like? Because you and I were talking off camera a moment ago about the fact that Latrobe Magnesium, ASX code, ladies and gentlemen, is LMG, that you're the only listed magnesium player. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are a few hopefuls I call them hopefuls in America, but literally for the people that are under construction, there's just us and a company in Canada, and that's a private company. So we're the only two that's actually in the construction development phase.
Okay, so if you want exposure to the magnesium market, it's Latrobe Magnesium. So let's just unpack the market a little bit, David, because if anyone knows this market, it is you. So let's talk. China's got magnesium, some of the other countries. Can you just paint the picture of what it looks like? Because for investors to understand the market, I think is pretty important.
Okay. So magnesium market effectively is a million tonnes, and it's growing to 2 million tonnes by 2027. And that's just going to be pulled along by the aluminium sheet producers. So when you look at that million tonnes, China produces 900,000 tonnes. And the other 100,000 tonnes is produced really in Russia, Argentina, a little bit around the Dead Sea, and there's one player in the US, a small player. Everywhere so China uses of that 900,000 they produce, they use 450,000 tonnes.
Okay.
And the remainder, big users, if you like, could go to Japan around 40,000 tonnes, America. Even with the one producer, imports 160,000 tonnes, and EU, no producer, 150,000 tonnes. So it's all reliant on China. And what's happened recently to make the news is China has cut back all high energy users and high CO2 emitters, and that is in the mag industry, and they've reduced it. Basically, in one province, they cut off 60% of the supply. So what's that? That province makes 65% of the world's production, so 650,000 tonnes. You cut off 60% of that, and you basically cut off all the supply to external or Western countries. So that's why it's a critical raw material in Japan, USA, EU, and Australia. You know, and we're assessed as such. So you've got this basic supply problem where you just can't get magnesium at the moment. And the EU, Angela Merkel, came out and said that they only had inventory to last until December. Most of the USA and the UK people that we've spoken to have probably about 3 months to maybe 6 months. And the Japanese say 6 months, but they've cut the amount they're bringing in. So you could say that's 3 months as well. So you've got this real supply issue because they're not producing it, and everyone's reliant on it. So the price, of course, has gone through the roof. Went to 10,700 when this first was unravelled. Then they put a little bit of supply on it, went down to 5,500, but today it's 7,000 US FOB China a tonne. Traditionally, it would be around 3,000 to 3,500 US a tonne. So that's it's double the traditional price. And as I said, gone through the roof because of supply. So this shortage in supply is a real problem for the rest of the world. What actually means when you talk about magnesium, where is it used? The big use today is aluminium sheet. And aluminium sheet is used to make panels, hoods, and doors on cars, and it needs 5 to 6% of that alloy because the alloy makes it stronger and lighter. And if you don't have it, you can't make those products. And that's why then that will affect car production. That's why Merkel got so upset, saying it's going to affect our recovery from the COVID pandemic, because they make 30 odd million cars in Germany per annum. So it's going to affect that whole business. And that's what they're worried about, supply. So
you mentioned a moment ago the demand is going to go from 1 million to 2 million tonnes. Is that because we're moving from the internal combustion to the electric vehicle? Is that where that massive increase in supply is required? Where's that coming from?
Yeah, it's aluminium sheet, but you've got to lightweight a EV vehicle, because a lithium battery adds 20 to 25% of the weight versus an ICE vehicle. So the best thing to do to get that battery getting you further and lasting longer is to lightweight the vehicle. So it's even more, they've proven it's more important than the lithium battery itself. And what they're starting to do is make magnesium casing for the batteries so they can lightweight the battery. And, you know, it's even, as I said, more important in an EV vehicle. So, yes, it is, but it comes really back to, if you're not looking at individual parts, really comes the big seller is the aluminium sheet to lightweight that car.
Now, in Australia, Latrobe Magnesium, you guys are the only ones that have got a magnesium product going forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're the only people that are developing one at the moment. There's some people that come out of the woodwork that have magnesite deposits, but that's just a magnesite deposit. We have our own IP that was developed to effectively clean up the waste materials made by the brown coal fly ash in the Latrobe Valley, and we recycle 100% of that into magnesium plus 4 or 5 other products. So it's a complete waste recycler, if you like. It cleans up the environment, because if the ash dam is there and it escapes, either leaches into the water, or it gets airborne because it can dry out. It's very fine. The material is very fine. It's like a powder. So if it gets airborne, or a ash dam breaks and it goes into the water, there's not a lot of, if you like, harsh chemicals in the fly ash. But what it does is, because it's so fine, it sits on top of the water.
Yep.
And of course, it just blocks the oxygen. So therefore, fish die, and all your botanical matters die as well. So
okay, so not only are you creating a product, but you're cleaning the environment at the same time, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's why they've been trying to do it in the Latrobe Valley for a long time. And, you know, it's taken us a long time, I must say, to come up with these answers and come up with the right technology to be able to do that.
But it's working now, and you're very confident that you can start to produce this product, this magnesium product going forward, that will go out to those that need it.
Correct. Yes. Well, I mean, we use, I think, some of the best laboratories in Australia to do our work, and also people like CSIRO who do all our smelting work. So, you know, we've got great confidence in them, those parties.
Let's go into some numbers, David, if you wouldn't mind, because that was a really good look at the bigger picture. But Latrobe Magnesium, you recently raised 11.5 million. That funding and that timing, talk to me about what you're going to use those funds for, and why you needed to raise that much, or were you oversubscribed?
We actually have made 2 raisings, and one before that one as well, which we would have talked about. So in total, in the last 2 months, we've raised close to $15 million. The subscriptions were 28 in one and 6 in the other. So I suppose you could say of those 15 million, it was 34 million subscribed in 1 or 2 days. So yes, it was well oversubscribed for both of those raisings. When we put the $15 million together with the $5 million we've already spent on doing our design engineering works, and we add to that what we announced this week of $20 million on a project finance deal, then you can see there that's $40 million, which is basically more than the cost of the initial plant. The initial plant's 39 million.
Right.
So we've raised more than that. So we're fully funded to pursue the demonstration plant, which we believe we'll have up and running by the end of next year. So that's a 1,000 tonne plant, operational December/January next year, and producing. And then what we want to do is go straight into the 10,000 tonne plant.
When you say go straight into the 10,000 tonne plant, when will you be doing that? In 2023?
We'll be doing that 23 and be up and operational June 24.
Okay. So that's when everything starts to happen, because what you said before is China is squeezing the neck and not actually putting it out. Have you had some companies come to you with offtake, and are you having conversations with people saying, get us this magnesium as quickly as you can?
Yeah, we are, Kerry, but the trouble is we've already have offtakes, and we have had offtakes since 2016 with two parties, one in Japan, one in the USA, and that 10,000 tonnes is well gone. So what we've been looking at is bringing forward the idea of a bigger plant, 100,000 tonne plant, and we would look to do that offshore because...
Oh, would you? Okay.
Yeah, we'd be looking, because the source of the material comes from offshore, and we'd be looking to do it in two, if you like, from renewables in two locations, either solar or hydro. So that's why we brought forward that feasibility study. We would hope that next year we would secure the supply, which is very, very easy to do for that project. It's not a big issue. And secure a JV partner to develop it with us, and who wants the 20 to 40,000 tonnes of that 100,000 tonnes. So it's providing a solution to the big users effectively, and that's the way we think it's best to, if you like, solve the China supply issue, because otherwise there are no solutions. You cannot build a project like 100,000 tonne. We've gone a long way there. Concept studies and everything else, but if you were starting from scratch, it takes you 4 to 5 years. So that's just to do the amount of work you need to do. I mean, it's $1 billion project, but we can see that with a joint venture partner, with some what we'd always look for is a royalty for our technology against that. So we get a payback for the 20 odd years and the 20 odd $1 million we spent on the technology, and develop that. So we'd like to have that program mapped out, done by the end of 2022 next year. So
there's a lot of work going on, but you mentioned a moment ago the ESG component.
Yeah,
that's pretty important at the moment. Everyone's talking about ESG, but you're actually doing it. So talk to me about the ESG component, why it's so important for Latrobe.
Well, I mean, traditionally, because it's made in China, you have a very high CO2 emissions profile. They always call magnesium a green metal because it's lightweight, it's lighter, stronger, goes further, less emissions. But the problem's always been with the CO2 emissions at the front end in the primary production. 21 tonnes of CO2 in China per tonne of mag. We're under half of that at 10.2 on direct emissions. And just recently we've done some energy optimization work, and we've been able to get that down to 7.5. So that's 25% reduction since we've done that work in the last month. We're hopeful that we'll be able to move that onto renewables, e.g. solar, because there's quite a few solar farms being developed in the valley, and there's actually one about 500 metres away from our site. So
that's very handy.
It's very handy.
Is that
very handy?
Sorry to interrupt you, David. So really, it's the processing that uses it's intense energy, and
it's
what you're saying,
correct.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is we want to reduce the amount of energy used, and that's what we have done so far to get that 25% benefit. And now you go to the right energy source, and you even get more efficient, because an electric furnace is more efficient than a gas furnace. So we only make CO2 out of our gas. If we don't use gas, no CO2. And we get all the benefits from the other products. So that's why it's a big winner. And as I said, if we use renewables, we'd be down to zero. We'd achieve what our mission is. You have to do that. I mean, the aluminium industry is a bigger industry. They're 65 million odd tonnes a year. Their whole decarbonisation strategy is to look at renewables. So, when you talk about the big aluminium producers in the Middle East, they're all, of course, solar in the Middle East. If you talk about others, and China's talked about it, they want to put it near the 3 Mile High Dam, so they can use hydrogen. So that's their decarbonise, getting away from coal, get away from the other gases that they use now that have the high emissions. So you have to think ahead if you want to be in the industry. And of course, the people where it's going, the OEMs all have already declared zero net emissions 2030 to 2040 to 2050. They're in front of a lot of the other markets and or a lot of the other industries. And of course, if you can front up with zero mag versus 21 tonnes of CO2 produced,
you'll be the preferred supplier for the German car market and everybody else around the world. Then I assume. And would that then also attract potentially a premium on the price?
It could. I mean, I think the supply issue is probably a premium because, as I said, you think it's a lot of magnesium to produce, but when we're moving another 1 million tonnes forward over the next 5 or 6 years, and there's only 2 producers coming out of the woodwork that will be selling into that market, the Canadian ones, you're talking 50,000 tonnes and you talk us 100. Well, in that extra 1 million, that means China's still producing 85%. So if someone wants to diversify supply, the argument would be that, yes, there may be a premium, or you take a premium when you do your arrangements or your joint venture partnership with a big boy. And that's what we have a number of parties, 3 to 4 to be precise, that we have been talking to and that we want to keep talking to determine whether we can they'll participate in the bigger picture.
Let's talk some numbers. We spoke about you raising 11.5. You've also got some project funding. So the 10,000 tonne plant.
So the 10,000 tonne would require another up to $100 million of CapEx.
Right.
We believe because of our offtake agreements that we'll be able to raise that in project funding, because you've got to remember the government just recently put $2 billion into a fund to finance critical raw materials. That's lithium, magnesium, nickel. And we've been approved by that fund to date. So it's a matter of getting
access. So Latrobe can access part of that fund.
Correct, at very favourable rates. So it's a matter of us getting up, proving our 1,000 tonne data is correct.
Yep.
And you just take that straight out to the 10,000 tonnes. So, we would be doing a bankable feasibility study because, it's the same process. So it's not hard to extrapolate. It's the same plant, etc. So we know what we're doing because we've done all the detailed engineering on the small one and bigger ones in the past. So we believe that's it's a fairly easy and quick exercise. So,
but then when you also mentioned 100,000 tonnes and that there is a need for that, but how much longer will that take? How much funding will? Is that almost? I don't like to say a bridge too far, but that's big capex, is it?
No. Most of the people in Latrobe have built mines that are bigger than that are around that size.
Okay.
What you look at is, as I said, in round figures, if you talk $1 billion, we would want for a 50% interest, we would ask for $200 million from a player, from a joint venture partner. We'd put $100 million in ourselves, and we'd have 70%, e.g., $700 million raised in debt. That sounds like a lot of debt, but the EBITDA on that plant is around $500 million. So, it can easily cover the debt and repay the principal over 10, 20 years. And the sort of funding you're talking about is 10, 20-year funding at very reasonable rates. we know we've spoken to people like the Export Bank in the EU Investment Bank, people like that. That if we sell into the EU, as you mentioned, we can have preferential funding because we tick all the boxes on recycling and magnesium being critical raw material. And as I said, as long as we sell an appropriate amount of product into the EU, we get that funding. Okay,
we're running out of time. I want to ask you a couple more things. You've recently just exercised an option to buy the property down in Hazelwood North. Talk to me about that deal, why it was important, and how that impacts you.
Well, we actually had a fixed price option when we did the deal 9 years ago. We think the property has risen over that. I mean, just the land, 11 hectares of land, is worth unimproved value for rate purposes is close to $2 million. There has 6 overhead cranes that are worth about 2.8, and we're picking up 14,000 square metres of building that's 12 metres high, which is ideal for our purposes, for basically nothing. So we think that's a great deal. We also think the location to the renewable could be a very big bonus for us. So
when is that? Sorry to interrupt you, David. When is that solar farm going to be ready? You said it's 500. What was it? 500 metres away, so you can tap into that.
February 24, Kerry.
February 24.
Yeah.
So literally, just as you're coming into production, that's going to be
in June 24. We can turn it on. So I mean, that's been approved by the locals. It's sitting with the state planning minister at the moment. They don't believe there's going to be any issues. So we have to do an offtake agreement with them. But if we can't do that, we'll look at there are other ways of making sure we can access renewables, which is what we will do for that plant.
Okay, so from shareholders or those watching today that are looking and saying, well, Latrobe Magnesium, should I take a really good look at this? This is not investment advice, ladies and gentlemen. Do your own research. But what do you think? I guess let's just say, what are the 3? People know that this is what I always ask. What are the 3 reasons that you think investors or current shareholders should be sitting up and going, oh, okay, it's ticking the boxes, but just give me 3.
Okay. So funding, I think, is one of the most important. We've got all the funding to do the small plant, and we believe that we'll be not raising a lot of equity, if at all, to do the 10,000 tonne plant. Secondly, so there's no dilution when you're building the bigger plant, and we don't look to a lot of dilution even when we go to 100,000 tonne because it's a joint venture. Well, it's a joint venture, so if we might have to raise 100 million. We'd expect our price to be a lot higher then, but we're getting 200 million, so we get a premium from our JV partner. And we've had these discussions before with people that are keen. The second thing is definitely our circular economy, our recycling to get rid of it could be harmful waste, get rid of these ash supplies, and also for the benefit of the community as well as other stakeholders, and make money because they're saleable. It also protects us from China because China only has 1 product, magnesium. We have 5. So all of a sudden you can see how our operating costs can compete with China because we're producing these other products.
What are those other products, just while we're talking, David?
Mainly cement. The big one is in the cement business, which is it's a substitute for Portland cement. They call it an SCM, supplementary cementitious material, but it doesn't have any CO2 in it. So all of a sudden we can mix 30% can replace, 70-30% mix in Portland cement. It picks up the same, it picks up quicker, picks up stronger, and as I said, it has 30% less emissions. So that's a big positive for the selling of that product in the building industry, as well as infrastructure. The ESG, I think, as I was mentioning, is the CO2 along with that. Basically zero magnesium would be a fantastic product to get to.
Absolutely. And point number 3.
Well, even with that at the moment, we're at 7.5. So that's a third of what happens in China. And number three is just the financials. I mean, effectively, our numbers on the 10,000 ton plant are $110 million of revenue and 42 million of EBITDA. And I think if you put if you take a lithium comparison,
Yep.
if you want to say, they probably sell on 10 to 15 times. So you can see that's 400 to 600 million. So if we're 150 today, we still have a long way to go. That's by June 24, and making sure we just now concentrate on getting those plants up.
Well, it's certainly a very exciting. I mean, I only spoke to you a month ago. Goodness, it's blowing my mind. You've done a lot since we last spoke, which is why I thought it was important to have you back on today, just before Christmas. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. A little Christmas cheer for you. Latrobe Magnesium absolutely hammering down that highway into that low ESG, big market out there, and making sure that there is supply, not just from China, but they will be supplying into Europe, which is really needing it. And as David said right at the beginning, the supply is going from 1 million to 2 million, and they will be right on track in 2024 to be delivering into the market. David Paterson, great to see you from Latrobe Magnesium. Congratulations. I wish you a very happy Christmas, and you better come back on in the new year. And if between 1 month and today you've done so much, I'll have to be talking to you in February.
I've got to slow down. But you have a great Christmas, Kerry.
All right. Thanks for sharing with us today. And to all of you out there, the ASX code once again is LMG. That's Latrobe Magnesium. And it's a great product going into a low carbon emission economy. Thanks for watching us, and thanks for joining me on Small Caps today, David.
Thanks, Kerry.